The following account has been compiled from interviews, police reports, archaeological surveys, and recovered audio recordings from the San Juan County Sheriff's Department. Names have been changed to protect the living. Locations have been deliberately obscured. What you are about to read has never been officially acknowledged by any government agency. The New Mexico desert holds its secrets close, buried beneath layers of red sand and geological time that stretch back millions of years. But some secrets refuse to stay buried. Some secrets scream. Dr. Melissa Lee first heard about Skinwalker Mesa during a faculty meeting at the University of New Mexico in the fall of 2019. She was reviewing grant proposals for archaeological digs when a colleague mentioned unusual seismic activity near a Navajo reservation in the northwest corner of the state. The readings showed consistent low-frequency vibrations emanating from deep within a mesa formation, vibrations that occurred with disturbing regularity between midnight and 4 a.m. "It's probably just settling bedrock," her colleague had said, shuffling papers. "But the locals are spooked. They say the mountain is screaming." Chun, a specialist in ancestral Puebloan archaeology, was intrigued. The mesa in question sat at the edge of what had once been a thriving pre-Columbian settlement. According to tribal records, it had been considered sacred and forbidden for over 8 centuries. 3 months later, she would wish she had never heard the name Skinwalker Mesa at all. The first expedition was supposed to be routine. Chen arrived in late January 2020 with a small team: graduate student Marcus Rodriguez, geologist Dr. James Patterson, and sound engineer Lisa Park, who specialized in recording subsurface geological phenomena. They set up base camp 5 miles from the mesa, close enough to conduct their research but far enough to respect tribal boundaries. Local Navajo elder Thomas Begay met them at the trading post in nearby Shiprock. He was a man in his 70s, weathered by decades of desert sun, but his eyes held a clarity that made Chun uncomfortable. When she explained their research, his expression darkened. "That place is not for outsiders," he said simply. "My grandfather told stories. His grandfather told stories. The mountain has been hungry for a very long time." Chun pressed him for details, but Begay would only shake his head. "Some stories aren't meant for recording devices, Dr. Chun. Some stories live in the blood." It was Rodriguez who first noticed the cattle. On their second day at base camp, he pointed out several skeletal remains scattered across the desert floor. All cattle, all positioned in perfect circles around the base of the mesa. The bones were bleached white by the sun, but Chun estimated they couldn't have been there more than a year. What disturbed her was their positioning. The skulls all faced inward, toward the mesa, as if the animals had been drawn to the rock formation before they died. "Predator kill?" Rodriguez suggested, but even he didn't sound convinced. There were no tooth marks on the bones, no signs of scavenging. The cattle had simply died and been left to decay in geometric patterns that made no sense from any biological standpoint. Dr. Patterson set up his seismic equipment that evening as the sun painted the desert in shades of blood and amber. The mesa loomed above them like a sleeping giant, its red sandstone cliffs catching the last light. According to his instruments, the formation was solid, no caves, no underground caverns that might explain the acoustic anomalies reported by locals. "If there are sounds coming from in there," he told the team, "they're coming from deep. Deeper than my equipment can penetrate." They didn't have to wait long. The screaming began at 12:47 a.m. Lisa Park's recording equipment captured it first. A low, mournful sound that seemed to emanate from directly beneath their campsite. It started as a whisper, barely audible above the desert wind, but gradually increased in volume and intensity until it became an unmistakable human scream. Then another voice joined it. Then another. By 1:15 a.m., the desert air was filled with the anguished cries of what sounded like dozens of people, all screaming at once, all screaming from somewhere deep underground. The sound was so penetrating that it seemed to bypass the ears entirely and resonate in the bones. Rodriguez vomited. Patterson's hands shook so violently he couldn't operate his equipment. But it was Chun who made the most disturbing observation. She was listening to the cacophony through Park's headphones when she realized something that made her blood run cold. The screams weren't random. They were following a pattern, a rhythm that sounded almost like Language. It's structured, she whispered to Park. They're trying to say something. The screaming continued until exactly 4 a.m., then stopped as abruptly as it had begun. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the noise. A dead, heavy quiet that seemed to press down on the camp like a physical weight. None of them slept that night. The next day, Chun interviewed locals in Shiprock while her team analyzed the recordings. Every person she spoke to had a story about the mesa, and every story followed the same disturbing pattern. Maria Santos, a rancher whose property bordered the sacred land, had lost 17 head of cattle over the past 2 years. She found them arranged in circles around the mesa, their eyes gone, their bodies perfectly preserved despite the desert heat. It's not coyotes, she insisted. Coyotes don't arrange their kills like some kind of ritual. Truck driver Bill Morrison claimed he'd heard voices calling his name while driving past the mesa on late-night runs. Clear as day, even over the engine noise. Sounded like my dead brother asking for help. I pulled over, but there was nobody there. Just that damn mountain, sitting there like it was watching me. Most unsettling was the testimony of Angela Yazzie, a tribal social worker who had been tracking missing persons cases in the area. According to her records, 7 people had vanished near Skinwalker Mesa in the past 5 years. Hikers, hunters, even a geological survey team from the state university. Their vehicles were always found abandoned at the base of the mesa, keys still in the ignition, no signs of struggle. The strangest thing, Yazzie told Chen, is what the search dogs do. They'll track a scent to the base of the mesa, then refuse to go any further. They whine and back away like something's terrifying them. Even the most experienced tracking dogs won't set foot on that rock. Back at base camp, Lisa Park was analyzing the audio recordings when she made a discovery that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Using sound isolation software, she was able to separate individual voices from the nighttime cacophony. What she found defied explanation. The screams weren't coming from the same location. Some emanated from directly beneath the campsite, others from depths that seemed impossible. Miles underground, far deeper than any known cave system. But the most disturbing finding came when she ran the voices through vocal recognition software. 3 of the screaming voices matched missing persons cases from Angela Yazzie's files. That's impossible, Rodriguez said when Park showed him the analysis. Those people disappeared years ago. The software doesn't lie, Park replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael Santos vanished in 2017. The computer says that's his voice screaming down there. Dr. Patterson's geological surveys were equally baffling. His deep penetrating radar showed the mesa was indeed solid sandstone, except for one anomaly. Starting at a depth of approximately 50 feet and extending down beyond the range of his equipment, there appeared to be a vast hollow space. The readings suggested a cavern system of impossible scope, stretching for miles in every direction beneath the desert floor. It's like the entire region is hollow, he told Chin, but that's geologically impossible. The weight of the overlying rock should have collapsed any cave system this large millions of years ago. On their third night, the screaming began earlier 11:30 p.m. and with greater intensity. But this time they were prepared. Chun had positioned herself at various points around the mesa, trying to pinpoint the source of the sounds. What she discovered would change her understanding of the phenomena completely. The screaming wasn't coming from beneath the mesa. It was coming from everywhere. Standing at the base of the rock formation, Chun could feel vibrations through her boots. Not the random rumbling of geological activity, but rhythmic pulses that felt almost like a heartbeat. The sandstone beneath her hands was warm, far warmer than it should have been after the desert had cooled for hours. And then she saw them, pressed against the rock face, visible only when lightning from a distant storm illuminated the mesa, were faces. Dozens of human faces, pushing against the stone from within as if the rock were nothing more than a thin membrane. Their mouths were open in silent screams, their eyes wide with terror. Some of the faces were fresh, recently dead. Others appeared ancient, mummified by centuries underground. Chun stumbled backward, her heart pounding, convinced she was hallucinating. But when the next lightning flash came, the faces were still there, more of them now, covering the entire visible surface of the mesa like a grotesque wallpaper of the damned. The expedition was supposed to last 2 weeks. It ended on the 4th night. Lisa Park was monitoring the audio equipment when she heard something that made her blood freeze. Her own voice, screaming from deep underground. The timestamp on the recording showed it was happening in real time, but Park was sitting in the tent, fully conscious and terrified. "That's me," she whispered to Chun. "That's my voice down there. But I'm right here." As if summoned by her words, the screaming intensified. But now it wasn't just the voices of the missing. It was all of them. Chun heard her own voice, Rodriguez's voice, even Dr. Patterson calling for help from somewhere in the depths beneath their feet. They broke camp within an hour and never returned. The official report cited equipment malfunctions and adverse weather conditions as the reason for the expedition's early termination. Dr. Patterson transferred to a university in Colorado. Rodriguez dropped out of the graduate program entirely. Lisa Park suffered a complete nervous breakdown and spent 6 months in psychiatric care. Only Chun continued researching the mesa, but from a distance, through historical records and tribal archives. What she found painted a picture of horror stretching back centuries. Spanish colonial records from the 1600s mention gritos diabolicos, diabolic screams, coming from a mesa near Navajo territory. Early American territorial reports describe a singing mountain that drove travelers mad. Even geological surveys from the 1950s note unexplained acoustic phenomena in the area, though these references were quickly classified and removed from public records. Most revealing were the Navajo oral histories Chun finally convinced Thomas Begay to share. According to tribal legend, the mesa was a prison, not for criminals but for something far worse. Centuries ago, when the world was young and the boundary between the physical and spirit realms was thin, a creature of immense hunger had emerged from deep places in the earth. It fed not on flesh, but on life force itself, drawing the essence from living beings and trapping their souls in an endless cycle of torment. The ancient ones had managed to contain it, sealing it beneath layers of rock and spiritual barriers. But the creature was patient. It learned to call to the living to lure them close enough to feed. Each person who disappeared added to its strength and expanded its reach. "The mountain is not just alive," Begay told Chun during their final interview. "It is hungry, and it has been feeding for a very long time." Chen's research might have ended there, filed away as an academic curiosity, if not for what happened in the summer of 2023. A new geological survey team, unaware of Chen's work, set up equipment near Skinwalker Mesa to study earthquake activity in the region. They disappeared after 3 days. Search teams found their campsite intact, all equipment running normally, no signs of struggle or distress. But Lisa Park, working from her home in Albuquerque, was monitoring radio frequencies in the area as part of her ongoing therapy, a way to face her trauma by listening for the sounds that had haunted her. On the night the survey team vanished, she recorded something that defied all rational explanation. The recording, which Park reluctantly shared with Chun, captures what sounds like a conversation. But it's not between the missing geologists. It's between the mesa itself and its victims, a negotiation conducted in screams and whispers that seems to span multiple timelines simultaneously. The most chilling moment comes 17 minutes into the recording, when a voice that sounds exactly like Dr. Patterson says, "It's growing. The hollow spaces are expanding. Soon it won't need the mountain anymore." Then, in Lisa Park's own voice, terrified and pleading, "It remembers everyone who's ever heard it scream. We're all still here, Chin. We're all still feeding it." The recording ends with laughter that sounds like grinding stone. Park disappeared 3 days after sending Chun the file. Her apartment was found undisturbed, her car still in the parking lot. The only sign of her departure was a note taped to her recording equipment. "Going home to the screaming place. Tell Chun the mountain remembers her too." Today, Skinwalker Mesa remains off-limits to researchers and tourists alike. The Navajo Nation has increased patrols in the area, though tribal police report that their vehicles often malfunction near the mesa, GPS systems spinning wildly before showing coordinates that don't exist on any map. Dr. Sarah Chun now teaches at a small college in Vermont, as far from the desert as she can get. She doesn't discuss her research anymore, doesn't return calls from paranormal investigators or documentary filmmakers. But sometimes, on clear nights when the wind is still, she claims she can hear something calling her name. Her colleagues dismiss this as PTSD, the lingering effects of a traumatic field experience. They don't know about the voicemails she receives from numbers that don't exist. Voicemails that contain nothing but screaming voices speaking her name in perfect unison. They don't know about the dreams where she walks across an endless desert toward a mesa that grows larger with each step. Its red cliffs covered in faces that look exactly like her own. Most of all, they don't know about the recording she made during their final night at base camp. A recording she's never shared with anyone, not even Lisa Park. It captured something the others didn't hear. Beneath the screaming, beneath the voices of the damned, there's another sound. Breathing. Deep, rhythmic breathing that comes from everywhere and nowhere, as if the desert itself has lungs. And in that breathing, if you listen carefully enough, you can hear words in a language that predates human speech, words that translate roughly as, "Still hungry, always hungry, come back to the screaming place." The mesa waits, patient as stone, ancient as hunger. It has learned that the best bait is mystery, that the most effective lure is the human compulsion to solve puzzles and explore forbidden places. Every documentary made about Skinwalker Mesa, every article written, every story shared around a campfire is another invitation, another call to the curious and the brave. The screams beneath the sand continue every night, like a beacon broadcasting to anyone willing to listen. They say the same thing they've always said, in voices both familiar and strange. Come closer. Come home. Come feed the mountain that remembers everyone's name. And somewhere in the darkness beneath the New Mexico desert, something vast and patient counts each new voice that answers its call, adding them to the chorus that will scream forever in the hollow places below, where the mountain keeps its memories and the desert keeps its secrets. The recording ends. The screaming doesn't. This concludes our investigation of Skinwalker Mesa. If you have information about the disappearances mentioned in this report, please contact local authorities. If you have experienced unexplained phenomena in the San Juan County region, please do not investigate alone. Remember, some places are forbidden for good reason, and some hungers are older than human memory.